Starting off tonight, we're hearing from Maine Secretary of State Jenna Bellows after Maine's chief federal judge tossed out the Trump administration's probe into the state's voter rolls. The Justice Department lawsuit had sought to force state officials to hand over registration lists with sensitive voter information like birth dates, partial social security numbers, and driver's license numbers. But today, Judge Lance Walker granted Maine's request to toss out that DOJ suit. A Wisconsin federal judge today also dismissed Trump administration request for that state's unredacted voter information. In his dismissal, Judge Walker from Maine said, quote, "The United States request would require me to turn a blind eye to traditional practices of federalism and how those expressions have found expression in American elections."
He said specifically that the states are the regulators and administrators of federal elections. Only Congress can change that. And even Congress is limited by the Constitution because our founders understood that under the Constitution, the states should be in charge of elections to safeguard against tyranny by the executive branch.
President Trump has previously raised allegations of voter fraud in Maine and in other U.S. elections. Maine is the 7th state where his administration's effort to obtain voter registration list has been unsuccessful. The state is upholding its decision to suspend payments to Gateway Community Services. That's a Maine care provider for people with disabilities. Gateway has been accused of falsifying billing records after DHHS reported Gateway overbilled Maine Care by $1.7 million between 2017 and 2022. Gateway had appealed that decision by the Mills administration. Gateway now has less than 60 days to request a hearing for its appeal to continue. A wildfire at Garfield Plantation today is under investigation. The Maine Forest Rangers said they and the Ashland Fire Department responded to a, quote, out-of-control wildfire at the plantation. They said the fire was held at 4 acres and the cause is now under investigation. The fire marshal's office is sharing new information from their investigation into the fire at Robbins Lumber that happened last Friday. According to a press release, crews spent today working on scene excavation, evidence recovery, and interviews. They say that so far, the investigators have sifted through hundreds of cubic yards of sawdust and sorted through debris. A crane arrived today, and they say another is expected to arrive tomorrow to assist in that investigation. And as the investigation into the fire continues, we're also learning how the fire is impacting the logging industry. The mill buys from more than 100 logging contractors and supplies lumber products to dozens of businesses throughout the state. Staff at Balanced Forestry say they've been working with the Robbins family for more than a decade and rely heavily on them for lumber sales. They and other businesses have concerns that the temporary closure of the mill could leave a big hole in the industry.
When you're that close to a mill, it is a expense to try to turn and pivot to other mills at farther distances. Trucking costs, diesel fuel being so high right now, all of that goes through the roof. So it will really be probably trying to avoid removing some of those products for a while until we get a better feel for what we're dealing with, what the future might hold.
Hammond Lumber also announced it will be donating $100,000 to help support the Robbins family and others impacted by the fire. Mental health experts and first responders say the emotional impact of this year's Mont Lumber Mill fire will be felt for a long time to come. That's why they're making sure those impacted know support is available. Professional Firefighters of Maine provides a list of vetted mental health providers across the state, along with peer support services. The nonprofit, the Toned Out Project, helps cover the cost of counseling, offers peer support programs, and connects first responders to wellness resources.
There are resources. As a mental health professional, we're all communicating, we're talking, we're offering support, we're gathering resources together for the first responder community always, not just with this incident, but we have opportunities for them to get support in many different ways.
If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, help is available. You can call the Maine Crisis Line at 1-888-568-1112 or the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by dialing 988. Communities across Maine gathered in Belfast today to honor a young firefighter killed in the fire. Hundreds attended a visitation to pay tribute to Andrew Cross's service and sacrifice. CENTER Maine's Akua Deval has the details.
First responders and community members gathering at the Raposta Funeral Home in Belfast to honor the life of 27-year-old Andrew Cross. Throughout the evening, buses continued dropping off fellow first responders from multiple fire departments along with community members as they made their way inside to pay respects to the Morrill native. Cross died Friday while responding to the Robbins Lumber mill fire after a silo fire escalated into a massive explosion that injured 12 other firefighters and workers. Friends say Cross balanced overnight shifts at Bath Iron Works with serving his community as a firefighter in Morrill. Augusta Fire Chief David Groder says while he didn't know Cross personally, it's a reminder of the dangers of the job and how quickly first responders come together when one of their own is lost in the line of duty.
The mentality that we have is that we're going to help protect property and lives, and then unfortunately sometimes bad things happen. They always call it a brotherhood or a sisterhood. We're one family, and then the families break down within your organizations. So people just feel indebted that they need to show their appreciation for his service, his dedication.
Governor Janet Mills has ordered flags across Maine to be lowered Friday in his honor. Funeral services for Cross are expected to be held Friday afternoon at the Veracity Chapel in Morrill. In Belfast, Akua Deval, CENTER Maine.
Investigators with the Maine Fire Marshal's office were also attending the service today. In a statement, the agency said in part, quote, "We continue to extend our heartfelt condolences to his family, fellow firefighters, and all those affected by this tragedy."